I was watching this, and I was like, okay, I'll be perfectly honest. I think I disagree with every viewpoint of whoever's making this movie, but I found the movie very interesting and very well made. I was not a huge fan of the end. I think the end does take away some of the movie, but overall, I applaud this movie because it was a totally different viewpoint than I have, and I think they did a great job. Also, a great job of basically a movie with two people.
Yeah.
And keeping my attention throughout the whole film.
Wow. I wanted you to totally get into this first because I know you're atheist.
Yes.
With maybe some slight doubts from your Ouija and
Probably
seeing something
not.
in the tree
Well,
experience.
maybe
What are you talking about? The two people, it was a husband and wife, and they moved across the street and lost them in the dark?
There are
I didn't know that.
There are things out that maybe we don't know about, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think there's the Lord and the Savior.
I didn't say that, but there's stuff going on other than
all right. That's fair.
But at any rate, so Neal is not a man of faith.
No. And so there's that. There's also a lot of social commentary in the movie that I don't agree with any of it. Any of the political views, I don't think that they're really trying to get over. But the movie made me think, and it also let me see their viewpoint, which I can respect. And I really thought they did a good job. And there's something else I was going to say on that same subject. Okay, so also because I think they're looking at a lot of so there's faith, there's stuff about assisted suicide, or and abortion, but then it started to make me think, because this is a demonic possession movie. Is the portrayal of the demon in this movie any different than the portrayal of a demon in The Exorcist, or even Dracula and Renfield we're talking about? The point is, the demon in this is really fixating on the guilt of the people, which really is no different than those other movies, regardless of if you think their guilt is warranted or not.
It's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, I liked it. I'm not an atheist. I don't know what I am. I think there's a lot of wild, crazy stuff that I have no real answers to anything. I think some things, like a little bit of different things, make sense to me. I very much really do respect people who are decent, good people, who have faith, whatever that faith may be. But I have some familiarity because I did grow up with someone very, very religious, and I did not grow up with any religion. It was like banned from the household because of people that grew up in a time where you were forced to go to like Catholic school and they told you they're going to go to hell. So at any rate, I did not grow up with religion, and I've always been fascinated by it. So me and this friend that I grew up with, I used to ask him questions. He was very respectful, and we just have these big conversations about whatever his beliefs were, and he remains very faithful and very strict to this day. And I thought this was a really cool movie to do exactly what you said it did, is to put these perspectives out there where you can see where they're coming from, even if you're not totally, you have different, like abortion, right? So the demon says that by the end of your time with it, so it's to set it up.
Yeah. It's a really interesting setup for a movie, too, honestly.
Yeah. It's a psychiatrist who was called in to evaluate a guy on death row who's killed. I think he's found guilty
of so many of them.
There's like they can't connect, and there's someone that they never caught, which is what the demon-possessed man says. So the psychiatrist and him are in the same room, and it's like the night of the execution. It's either going to go forward if he's sane or stop if he's insane.
Right.
Because
that's a good question for a movie too, because I don't think everyone necessarily understands what that even means.
Basically what it is if you're not competent as a person to understand what the reality of what you're doing,
Because you could argue everyone who commits some type of murder is insane, right? On some level, but the idea is like this: if someone's telling you that they're possessed by a demon, if they really believe that, are they guilty then? Legally, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, and it's funny, and they everything here is so strategic, because when the psychiatrist says early on, well, I'm here because it would be effectively wrong to kill you,
right,
unless you're not, if you're sane, then you need to die, and if you're insane, then we won't kill you. And it's like, I mean, the guy still murdered all these people. No, I'm not saying like,
no, I agree. I mean, it's a question to ask to begin with. Does it even matter at some level?
I thought it had me, because there are things that I question about all of these things. Honestly, these are all topics where I would not change. I would never be like, you humans can't do these things, like have rights to assisted suicide, be able to have abortions, death penalty. I get why they exist, and I get that. And at the same time, part of me is kind of like, for me, not for other people making their own personal life decisions or whatever, but I just think about like, I question. Like, I remember seeing like this life thing, there's like body worlds or whatever, and they showed like little, like the sizes of little babies. They were actually like little aborted little babies, and I was just like, oh my god, that's wow.
I actually never
it's
really.
Just hard to look at.
I'm completely pro-choice, which is the choice to do what you think's right.
Yes.
But I always think it's really a debate. If it's two people who are very one's pro-choice, like set in pro-choice, and the other person is set pro-life, I don't think a debate's ever really going to change either of their views. Maybe it's going to change someone's views in the middle, and you can have a discussion and see their side. But because it all comes down to the someone who is pro-life thinks that that's a life. So how could you really argue against them, saying you're wrong for thinking that you shouldn't end that life?
Well, I guess it depends on the person, because if you bring a person, there's different ways to have people educated. It depends on the person. Like, someone might come from a background that's very strict, and then they meet someone who just has the right way of putting things, and that person we're all influenced. We all learn, right? We all have things that, I hope, we all have things that we thought we were absolutely right, and someone comes along and influences us, and we're like, well, maybe. Or maybe they have their own personal experience.
So I think,
there's a person in their life who has to go through something.
These are huge topics that we're talking about right now, but I mean, like, little things, because my wrestling podcast, it comes up a lot. Not a lot, but there's a small group of people who, they call me Wokey Jones because they say I'm all woke now. So, but I mean, when I started the show, I was like 29, and now I'm 47. So, and all these different life experiences people have, people you meet, people from different walks of life you meet, you interact with, and health problems and all these things, like, you change over time. And if you didn't change at all, I think that would be more strange.
Yeah. I mean, but some people just don't. Some people kind of stay with it. Which, to the point of, who was it that said it on Thursday? That people are all in whatever stage they're at. Like, everybody's trying. Devani Penn was on. She was getting interviewed, and she ended up like coming out as a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, she is one, and it's something. She says it's not something that gets out there very often. Mm-hmm. And she kind of went to the defense of people saying, everybody's trying, and everybody's at a different place in time, and they're going through the things that they go through. And it is this very compassionate way to be. Sometimes it's hard to be that way, because when you think like, what the fuck, man, why don't you get it? But anyways, so
this was really, when I was watching it, because I could tell where it's going, not completely where it's going, but I could tell what kind of stance they had on things early on. And so I reluctantly, and I'm guilty of this sometimes if I know someone has a different viewpoint, even though I don't want to be, but I think people are being dishonest, and they say they're never guilty of that, of prejudging on some level. But as I watch it, I was like, this really has me into it, and it's asking interesting questions and doing it in a good way. And
I thought it was interesting because, I remember you saying something before we saw it about you thought it was put out by people who had a religious purpose with it.
Yeah.
But the demon, the things he was saying were, like he said, logical. Like he said, I'm the most logical being you're ever going to meet, and brought up things that I would think they wouldn't want to. Like God was so, basically so vain that he made people with free will just to put them in the position to have to choose to love him or not. And then if they chose, it's
almost like
then
1984.
God ends up being kind of like the Dracula character.
Right.
Where I've created you to choose to devote yourselves to me unquestioningly.
Right.
Or goodbye to hell.
Right.
That's sociopathic.
Yeah.
And that they would say that, and they do it in a way that is very logical, and it wasn't like your mother sucks cocks in hell.
No, but it's really similar idea. It's a classic evil where it's manipulating someone or trying to, but with their guilt and stuff, but it not necessarily lying.
But that's not even like guilt. It's like even him telling the story about God and the angels and where they came from and how demons showed up and the purpose of man and why God made man. And it just makes sense. It does make sense the way he says it. Yeah, that God has a big ego and wanted people there, and that the angels were like, we don't want to be slaves. Well, some of them. And then I don't know. It was very fascinating.
I was fascinated. Two characters, basically. I mean, there's a few other characters, but primarily, primarily it's two characters. And so at first, the villain guy had these weird quirks, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. But as the movie progressed, it worked for me.
Yeah. And
also his different demeanors from one character to the other.
Yes, because it was a demon-possessed guy, and he's very twitchy, and I felt the same as you, like, I don't know, this could end up being really hammy and too much.
We ask that all customers remain vigilant at all times.
Remain vigilant. You never know when some pigeon's going to come up on you.
I do that on the opening of In Your Head. I punch the camera, and I actually hit the camera.
If you see something, say something. Thank you and have a great day.
Did you break it?
No. But I did laugh.
I was very into it, even though I hated the psychiatrist.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree because he's
so unlikable. He's just a smug.
Yeah, very smarmy.
I just don't like him.
Very guy that thinks he knows all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
But I don't know. I really I thought it was really well made, and it made me think, which is, I mean, not every movie makes you think. And
I will say,
I think the very ending I don't really care for, and I think actually took away from the movie.
Yeah.
Because it actually went from a movie where it made you think and to becoming actually preachy.
Yeah.
Where even movies that I might be on the side of, that can be a problem because you're still watching some form of entertainment and you want people to kind of make up their own mind. Then it really just went, it crossed the line to now they're preaching to you.
Yeah. Yes. I was going to mention that with the back and forth of the demon character to Nefarious is the demon name, but that had some other translation. Nefarious the demon and Edward the man, and the psychiatrist, they made a deal together, and the psychiatrist said, first he said the demon wanted him to open himself to possession, and nothing happened, and the guy said, well, we have a trade, so now I want to talk to Edward. And Edward came out, and he was just so pitiful and whinging and crying.
Really
he was still kind of stuttering, and he comes in and out throughout the film. And I have to tell you that. Do you have a timepiece there?
No, my phone's up there.
Here, give me. I'm gonna make sure Neal goes home. Oh, you gotta go.
What time is it?
We gotta go.
All
It's
right.
11:42.
Okay.
It was great.
3.5.
I loved it. It
3.5.
was fantastic.
I would have gave 4, but the very ending brings down to me 3.5.
3.5. Okay, bye.
Annabelle, stand around.